This is A Course in Miracles, Manual for Teachers, Part 14. How will the world end? Can what has no beginning really end? The world will end in an illusion as it began. Yet will its ending be an illusion of mercy? The illusion of forgiveness, complete, excluding no one, limitless in gentleness, will cover it, hiding all evil, concealing all sin, and ending guilt forever. So ends the world that guilt had made, for now it has no purpose and is gone. The father of illusions is the belief that they have a purpose, that they serve a need or gratify a want. Perceived as purposeless, they are no longer seen. Their uselessness is recognized, and they are gone. How but in this way are all illusions ended? They have been brought to truth, and truth saw them not. It merely overlooked the meaningless. Until forgiveness is complete, the world does have a purpose. It becomes a home in which forgiveness is born, and where it grows and becomes stronger and more all-embracing. Here is it nourished, for here it is needed. A gentle Savior, born where sin was made and guilt seemed real. Here is his home, for here there is need of him indeed. He brings the endings of the world with him. It is his call, God's teachers answer, turning to him in silence to receive his word. The world will end when all things in it have been rightly judged by his judgment. The world will end with the benediction of holiness upon it. When not one thought of sin remains, the world is over. It will not be destroyed, nor attacked, nor even touched. It will merely cease to seem to be. Certainly this seems to be a long, long while away. When not one thought of sin remains appears to be a long-range goal indeed. But time stands still and waits on the goal of God's teachers. Not one thought of sin will remain the instant any one of them accepts atonement for himself. It is not easier to forgive one sin than to forgive all of them. The illusion of orders of difficulty is an obstacle the teacher of God must learn to pass by and leave behind. One sin, perfectly forgiven by one teacher of God, can make salvation complete. Can you understand this? No, it is meaningless to anyone here. Yet it is the final lesson in which unity is restored. It goes against all the thinking of the world, but so does heaven. The world will end when its thought system has been completely reversed. Until then, bits and pieces of its thinking will still seem sensible. The final lesson, which brings the ending of the world, cannot be grasped by those not yet prepared to leave the world and go beyond its tiny reach. What, then, is the function of the teacher of God in this concluding lesson? He need merely learn how to approach it, to be willing to go in its direction. He need merely trust it. Trust that, if God's voice tells him it is a lesson he can learn it. He does not judge it either as hard or easy. His teacher points to it, and he trusts that he will show him how to learn it. The world will end in joy, because it is a place of sorrow. When joy has come, the purpose of the world has gone. The world will end in peace, because it is a place of war. When peace has come, what is the purpose of the world? The world will end in laughter, because it is a place of tears. Where there is laughter, who can longer weep? And only complete forgiveness brings all this to bless the world. In blessing it departs, for it will not end as it began. To turn hell into heaven is the function of God's teachers, for what they teach are lessons in which heaven is reflected. And now sit down in true humility and realize that all God would have you do, you can do. Do not be arrogant and say you cannot learn his own curriculum. His word says otherwise. His will be done. It cannot be otherwise. And be you thankful it is so. Yeah. Can what has no beginning really end? The world will end in an illusion as it began. The illusion of forgiveness complete, excluding no one, limitless in gentleness, will cover it, hiding all evil, concealing all sin, and ending guilt forever. The illusion of forgiveness. And in this, the previous section, it said about the illusion must be replaced by a corrective device, another illusion that replaces the first, so both can finally disappear. And I don't think it was addressed in that previous section, but that this is what the corrective device is forgiveness. Because in heaven or in God, there's no forgiveness. There's no need for forgiveness. Forgiveness is only a device that's needed in a world where sin seems possible, because forgiveness is the letting go of or erasing of or release from sin. When I first heard this concept of realizing that forgiveness was also an illusion, I hadn't considered that it's not even necessary if you're fully one with God. There's nothing to forgive. You don't even perceive sin anymore. But, in this world of illusion that when we very much believe that we're here and we very much believe that these things are happening, then forgiveness is so very useful. The illusion of forgiveness, yes, and ending guilt forever. Until forgiveness is complete, the world does have a purpose. The world will end when all things in it have been rightly judged by his judgment. The world will end with a benediction of holiness upon it. When not one thought of sin remains, the world is over. It will not be destroyed, nor attacked, nor even touched. It will merely cease to seem to be. When not one thought of sin remains. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine a sinless existence? Can you imagine thinking only God? Certainly, this seems to be a long, long while away. It is not easier to forgive one sin than to forgive all of them. Sometimes, in my mind, in this timeline of the world, I perceive that it is a long time coming. That how is this going to be possible? Oh, it's never going to happen. It's going to take so long. But it is not easier to forgive one sin than to forgive all of them. So this kind of points back to when we can fully accept forgiveness, and also about this, how many teachers of God are needed to save the world. It's one, and the same concept of that you don't need to forgive the millions and billions of sins, but you really just need to fully forgive one. There are no levels, that it's not easier to forgive one than the billions. Because if you fully forgive, then it can happen instantly. Again, beyond time. It goes against all the thinking of the world, but so does heaven. The world will end when its thought system has become completely reversed. And to me, this is very important about realizing that the thought system in the world in which most of us have grown up in is kind of backwards, and that it takes a sort of undoing of all of the thought system that we have been given growing up in this world to accept a new one in our minds. And it takes some practice to be able to fully get that. But at a point, for me at least, at the beginning, like letting go of that thought system and introducing myself to a new one, it seemed uncomfortable and it seemed weird and it didn't make sense based on the world that I knew. But with more training and practice and really implementing a lot of the teachings in the workbook and the lessons from this text, it started to be reversed, where realizing that thinking in the old thought system felt then uncomfortable. And I think that's something that needs to be experienced and not just talked about conceptually. So I recommend doing the lessons in the workbook if you really want to implement them, to integrate that into your life. The world will end in joy because it is a place of sorrow. When joy has come, the purpose of the world has gone. The world will end in peace because it is a place of war. The world will end in laughter because it is a place of tears. Where there is laughter, who can longer weep? And it reminds me of a recurring ayahuasca vision that I have had, where the end of the world comes, and where it's like this stage, and where all of the world leaders and all of the sort of main characters in this story of the world are there, just bursting in laughter. And not just the people on stage, but everyone in the audience who is a participant of this world experience is just laughing. We're just laughing our asses off and realizing the cosmic humor of it all, and realizing that it's all just not real, and it's all just like this play, and we're all just playing these roles. And so yeah, that recurring vision comes up over and over again, and it's like there's confetti and there's stuff everywhere, and it's hilarious in a way. And so when I read this, the world will end in laughter because it is a place of tears. Where there is laughter, who can longer weep? And so I think that vision in a way was planting the seeds of this, of knowing what the end of the world is really about, that it's actually this joyous celebration of realizing that we have taken this all very seriously, but it's not. And that we don't have to live in this place of tears, that we can actually we can actually laugh. And then there's this one last line here that I also highlighted, which is, do not be arrogant and say you cannot learn his own curriculum. And do not be arrogant to say you can't learn this. And yeah, again, this is a huge text. It's over 1,000 pages, and it points to some real cutting truths. I've heard many stories of people having resistance to reading the book, throwing books away, burning it, denying it, running away from it, and the messages always come back. And realizing that it's actually an arrogance to say that you're not capable of getting these concepts. Like that's funny. Because we often think of arrogance as thinking we're better than something. And in this, it sounds like you're too arrogant to be able to learn this, implying that the world thought system is better than this thought system. And to me, it points to the sort of reversal of the thought system, and realizing that we can be humble enough to know that we can accept truth. And it's actually arrogant to think that we're incapable of accepting it, or you can say it's arrogant to believe that this whole world is incapable of accepting truth. Accepting the humility of accepting all that we are and all that we're capable of is more true. So that's all for this section, and hope you enjoyed that. See you later.